Welcome to Impact the World, the show for and about creatives, changemakers, and entrepreneurs. This is an insight episode where I share a few quick tips to help you take your work and mission to the next level. Hi, welcome to this video where I'm going to talk a little about why entrepreneurs need to create structure in their work, in their life, and in their creativity. Now, as someone who identifies as a creative and an artistic type, structure was not something I enjoyed, and it was something that I would often rebel against. But the more my work grew and the more the things that I was creating grew, the more I learned that actually putting structure into my work not only gave me the freedom that my soul craves and needs and has to know is there, but more importantly, helped me on an organizational level and an energetic level. So I thought I'd share a few quick tips for you to think about if you find yourself in this position of needing to create structure. So number one, when you first become self-employed or an entrepreneur, you are in the great unknown because you may not know your rhythm, your working rhythm. What I mean by this is that for most of us, we go through school and then a series of jobs, in my case, where the structure was given to me. I was told I had to show up at 9 a.m. I knew what time the lunch break was. I knew I was leaving at 5, and I was told what was expected of me in all of the hours in the middle. And if I did or didn't perform as was needed by that job or that employer, I would be told. So there was something a little like being a kid again. You know, you go from your parents to your school to your employer, and all of these people give you the rules and the guidelines. But when you first go self-employed, when you first become an entrepreneur, that freedom that you can love at the beginning, the setting your own schedule, setting your own hours, being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want it, can actually start to work against you once you're through the novelty and you haven't yet figured out your rhythm. So let's take a look at how you might identify some of your needs for your rhythm. Having a structure to your working day is not just for your own benefit and your own direction, but it will protect your energy from distraction or the needs of others that you might otherwise allow. What I mean by this is when I first began working from home, working for myself, if a friend called me and said, hey, do you want to meet for lunch on Tuesday? I would just go, oh yeah, okay, great. And I would find myself at lunch on Tuesday for 2 hours, just following my flow, and then suddenly realizing I was missing things that I needed to get done. So having a structure and a rhythm around your working hours is actually as important for communicating to other people as it is to yourself. There can be an assumption when you work from home or work for yourself that, hey, why can't you just come and chat to me now? You're just at home. And at first, having that boundary to friends, to family members, knowing when your working hours are and knowing when you are in work mode, even if you are still at home, is a really important thing to be able to communicate to the others in your life, especially if you have family members, loved ones, who need to understand this very new animal, which is you at home more of the time, but not necessarily accessible to them because your energy is going into the work. So figuring out that structure, that boundary as to when your time is work time and when you are available to others can be very helpful, especially if you typically are a person who struggles with boundaries where other people are concerned. The need for different modes at different times is the other reason to create structure for your work. So for example, when you work for yourself or you are part of a business where you are entrepreneurial in your mode, perhaps you're an independent contractor, you're usually doing more than one thing. One day you might have to be looking at the accounts. The next day you might be having to create a piece of writing or a video. The day after that you might have to be doing an interview or having a meeting with a prospective person that you're going to work with. These are all very different acts. So for example, what I learned early on was if I was having a day full of work meetings, it wasn't going to be conducive for me to get on camera and teach at 4 p.m. that day because my head and my brain would be in very left brain task mode all day. And then to flip into teaching, into being on camera, just didn't work for me. So I learned over time to divide up my days, sections of my days, into the types of tasks I was going to do. So if you are somebody who needs to do the admin for your business, be the front face of your business, perhaps be someone building relationships for your business, to recognize that those modes are all different. And even if you're good at flipping modes fast, you might need to organize your days, your hours, your mornings, your afternoons around the different modes needed for the different types of tasks. So this is another good thing to think about with structuring your week and your working hours. It may seem going against the grain to schedule creative or thinking time, but it's really important. If you work for yourself, what you know is that it's easy to always have the opportunity to think about your work. It's all in here, and the visionary part of you, the planning part of you, the problem-solving part of you can be on all the time if you don't start to organize your time, structure your free time. But I always think it's important to structure creative and thinking time for your business too. If you're only doing all of the time, you never get a chance to look back. And in the early years of my work, when I would say I was working a lot more hours than I am now, I would find that if I got the chance to go on holiday somewhere for a few days or added a few days to the end of a work event I was doing somewhere in the world, those would be some of the best times for thinking about the business because I wasn't performing, I wasn't expected to be showing up for meetings. So I had this space. So what I learned is you have to create some space in your week for thinking time and for creative time. And you might literally write Tuesday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., thinking creative time. And you can choose what you do every Tuesday. And hey, you might wake up one Tuesday and go, I just actually need some free time. But you're leaving and scheduling space in your week that isn't just about doing, that is actually about standing back, but also with creative time. You do need to schedule it. If you are a creative and you've suddenly started running your own business, one of the big shocks can be all of the tasks and things that you have to do to kind of get your work out into the world. So suddenly protecting and shielding a certain amount of your time every week to create is going to be very important, because if you don't schedule it and if you don't protect that time, you'll find it can very quickly disappear. But if you know that that's non-negotiable and you recognize and honor and value that a huge part of your work and your business is served by you being creative, you will structure it in a way that will make you a guardian of that time. Structure gives freedom. I will again say that I love freedom. It's one of my core values as a human being. And yet, I work a lot and I produce a lot of work, but it took me years to understand that structure would give me freedom. And the rebel in me would always push against too much structure, or I would work too hard for too long and then get annoyed and just take days off in order to try and recuperate. But what I found is the more I started to understand who I was as a worker bee and what I could do and build my work and my hours around that for optimum performance, but also optimum recovery, optimum personal lifetime. It took me years, but as I started to do it, I noticed my productivity, my engagement with life, not just my work, and engagement with work really shot up. So try and remember that structure gives freedom. If any of you are watching this video squirming or annoyed, I totally get it. I would have been the same, and I think I was the same whenever I heard this years ago. But remember that structure is not all about doing or working. It's about organizing your time. Like I said, protect your free time. Structure that every Thursday you have a whole day off because you're working on the other days. And that is going to start to give you this regulated freedom and oxygen that you need. So the days you do show up for work, your energy is really good and you're far more productive than if you're just on the hamster wheel trying to work all the time, thinking there's an endless to-do list. Guess what? There is an endless to-do list. I mean, that's the same in life. There's always going to be something we can do. There's always going to be something we can improve. But when we structure freedom and we structure creative time, things change. The other reason that you will need to create a structure is multiple tasks and multiple projects means multiple deadlines, and it's a lot to manage. If you're like me, you'll probably be doing a lot of different things at once. And even in the early days of my work, when there were only a few things that my work really provided in terms of services to the public, there were still multiple tasks behind the scenes that needed to be done. So the other reason that you schedule, the other reason that you take some time to organize is you don't want to miss deadlines, you don't want to have projects colliding on top of each other. So the more you have going on, the more you will be requiring calendaring things, knowing exactly how many hours it's going to need for you to complete a project, rather than stacking too many things next to each other and having unrealistic ideas about how long everything takes. So multiple tasks and multiple projects means multiple deadlines. That's the thing to always remember. So the more you say yes to, the more you have to schedule a successful path towards completing. The other thing to structure is not just your time and your energy, but where do you like to be? So if you work from home and you notice that by Tuesday afternoon, you're kind of sick of being by yourself in your home office, have you taken the laptop or your book or a diary out to a coffee shop? Have you experimented with public places where you can get some of that energy from other people and not feel like you're eroding your energy because you're too long in one place or too long in a place that doesn't really suit your working energy? So thinking about your working space, how can you structure your week to give you a nice balance around the spaces that you work in and the energy that those places give you? So for example, you might be the kind of person who loves going to a gym when it's really busy because that gives you energy. There are just as many of us who prefer it when the gym is quiet because it's less distracting and we can focus on our own energy. So as well as knowing your rhythm and knowing what kind of structure you need, think about what kind of environments you perform best in and what kind of variation you might need over the week. So if right now you feel lonely working at home, how can you find ways to bring in a little bit of energy, other people, interaction in your week that will balance that loneliness and keep your energy strong all week? And finally, your need for structure will change and evolve over time. There will be different periods of your life where you'll lean more into structure or where you'll benefit from it. But equally, you'll find that as your mastery improves, you will need to build less structure in certain ways. So for example, the first time you create an online video course, you should allow way more hours than you expect because it will probably be a big learning curve. But if you're on your 8th year of producing video courses, you'll find you can do it in half the time because you've got used to the amount of mechanisms, different ways of being on camera, how to deliver information. So like any of us, we grow and evolve over time. So your need for structure will grow and change too. So don't be rigid with the structure that you've got right now and assume that it's what you will be doing next year, but stay active in what you need. And the way to stay active is to ask yourself, how balanced am I feeling in my structure and my timing and my scheduling? What do I need to change this week? Have things changed in my work? And so I now need to make some other changes accordingly. I know for me that as I've gone through each different stage and each different year of the business, I've had to make different changes, and also your personal evolution. Things you go through in your personal life have an impact too. So recognizing that as much as your work itself, your ability to manage and structure yourself and your time within your work is a key component. It shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be something that we see as a very important, active part of our process that needs to be nurtured in the same way that we do. I hope some of this has helped, and good luck with your structure.
You have been listening to Impact the World. For more of my work, please visit leeharrisenergy.com. And to attend my 5-day Impact the World in-person training event held in Scottsdale, Arizona in April 2020, visit leeharrisenergy.com/impact.